Right, well, I should start that again. What's rare is wonderful. Kieran Donaghy, how are you?
Not too bad, Jar. How are you?
Welcome back to studio.
Yeah, thanks, man. It's good. COVID's over. We're allowed to
I know, it's great.
travel outside our 5-kilometre radius.
The feeling of normality. I was at the hurling final and it was so weird. That parade, the noise in the parade, even though there was only half the crowd there, was as big a noise as I've seen. And part of it was Cork thinking they could do it and in the famine. Part of it was Limerick being their moment of greatness. But the rest of us were just like,
yeah, it's a game. Let's go. Yeah, it was the same in the Mayo. We covered the Mayo Dublin game, obviously, in Croke Park, and there was 24,000 in it. And probably an idea for Croke Park long term with these smaller crowds to dot everybody around and keep everybody a small bit separated, because you just saw a bit of colour all. You know the way sometimes the Hogan would be packed and there'd be nobody in the Davin and the music to be spots. So, you know, it's probably good for the marketing team in the GA to look at dotting these people around, because it was infectious. The noise was amazing. When Mayo started going towards the end of normal time and extra time, it was here in the back of the neck stuff like Martin, our sound guy in Sky Sports, the Mayo man, and he was up trying to encourage the fans as much as possible, but they didn't need much encouragement now that once they started they went. But yeah, electric with 24,000, it'll actually be probably a bit intimidating for the players when they get back in front of 86,000 inside there, because it's just they're 2 years now not playing really in front of it. So yeah, but amazing. Hopefully we get a similar atmosphere tomorrow.
What is the fear in Kerry like at the moment? Because they're overwhelming favourites. They're being shooed in by all the pundits. Everybody's saying, sure, look, all they've got to do is show up. Tyrone are coming off their sick beds. They're not going to present any kind of a threat at all. The bookmakers have this as almost as nailed on a certainty as you would ever get between two Division 1 teams in an All-Ireland semi-final. I can't remember prices like this before. And yet, so what's the level of fear like, or is it expectation? What is?
There's both. There's always a small bit of trepidation when it comes to Tyrone, because we've been here before. 03 we came up here as big favourites and scored 6 points and met something that the team hadn't faced all year at that stage. Kerry haven't been in Croke Park since 2019. I look back in that semi-final of 19 during the week. Kerry were just banging trouble. Many of the same faces out there. Probably Paddy Clifford is the big plus that they would have that they didn't have in 19. But yeah, it was, you know, Kerry were just so much in trouble that day until Tommy Walsh came on in the 52nd minute, and within 3 or 4 touches of the ball he'd set up 3 points, and Kerry had got the goal and went from 3 points down to 4 points up, and it was a huge momentum swing. The Kerry crowd got into it for the first time and Kerry didn't look back from there. But before that, for the first 50 minutes, it was typical Tyrone, sucking us in, getting bodies back. Kerry probably not having faced anything like that in Munster. So the trepidation and the fear on the Kerry side would be from the lack of highly competitive games. Is that Kerry's fault? Have Kerry motored well in certain periods of those games they have? Is there periods in those games where you look at, you know, the Tipperary game, 47 minutes, Kerry had 18 points on the board and finished with 22. So they scored 4 points in the last 28 minutes if you include injury time. And what Tipperary did in that game is it just got bodies back, because they were down to 14 men. They were down to 13 men at the stage in that game, Ger. So it was like they were like saving face as Munster champions to not get annihilated by this Kerry team who'd just done it to Clare 2 weeks previous. And they just got bodies behind the ball. And, you know, if you're in the Tyrone camp and you're looking at stuff in preparation for this game, you're probably looking at a template that I feel Tyrone will go down, which will be very solid, be compact early. I think their league, they tried a few things in the league, tried to be very adventurous, and I think they've kind of reined it in a small bit.
Is that a bit of a rope-a-dope then, that game, that where they conceded all those goals?
Oh yeah, even that fixture, but even all during the league, they really tried to be adventurous with the ball and go away from what Mickey was doing slightly, which was, you know, a bit more run and gun with the ball. I think they started to really kick it, and I think they had a lot of turnovers in the league. You know, I think teams scored 315 off them on the league off of turnovers. And that's in the 4 games of the league, and in the championship they've only conceded 8 points off of kicking the ball away. So they've obviously reined a lot of that in. They'll still do it, and I feel they will test Jason Foley and the Kerry full back line tomorrow, considering we might have Breen Begley and maybe Tom O'Sullivan. And if McShane starts, he's a bit of a mismatch for one of those if Foley takes McKenna. So, you know, there is a number of matchups that I feel Tyrone will look to take advantage and see if they can rattle Kerry with a goal early, but I would say they'll be very compact at the back and try and turn this into a dogfight.
There's big question marks about where Tyrone's identity is at the moment. It's clearly in evolution. It's the post-Mickey Hart era, and they've come and they've decided that they're going to be more attacking because they've got attacking players, and that was... what the end of the Mickey Hart era was very predictable for opponents. They knew exactly what Tyrone were going to do. They worked them out, and they could generally take what they're doing. So, if Kerry have if Tyrone have accelerated that, and again we're assuming that everybody's fitting well on the basis that we don't know anything else, then it's going to be they're going to be a huge threat this season. But if it's going to take them a little while to get there, which is what you would expect normally for a new management team, that's the big thing from Tyrone's perspective, really, isn't it? That they're just working through who they are at the moment.
Correct. In fairness, you have to give Logan and do her a lot of credit for, you know, the job that they came in. They really wanted to put their stamp in the team early, and even though they wouldn't have had much time with the squad, you could really tell the squad bought into what these guys were trying to do. And, you know, they were very adventurous. They looked to kick the ball in a lot. You know, and when you kick the ball in a lot, there's pros and cons. Obviously, you know, as a player, when I was inside, I wanted people to kick in the ball because you know, it's 50-50. Yes, it is. Could you get beaten to 2? You could, but if you win 1, there's an easy goals out of it.
Yeah.
Whereas when you have to work a goal all the time, it can take a long time to pull off one good decent ball outside a guy that has good hands and it's a goal. And they were trying to do that and worked it really well. And even early in the Ulster final, it looked really good against Monaghan and putting in that type of ball. But I think they've certainly curtailed it, and I think they've mixed it slightly better in the championship. You know, I think it was something they said, let's go with this and let's see how they were getting on with it, and they got on quite well. I think the Kerry game might have been a bit of an eye-opener to them and say, okay, we can't be as reckless kicking in the ball, because if we're going to turn it over against the top teams, you're going to get punished on the back of it, which is what happened in the league game. But I would say that the amount that they've learned from that league game and what they've shown so far in the championship has been what I would probably look at is the kind of perfect balance of what this Tyrone team have. Is, you know, they've got a few really good defenders in Hamsey, and, you know, they like to kind of protect them a bit more, which they've done in the championship, and then they've got really good runners that can carry them out. I think you know, their midfield has definitely strengthened up in what they're going with now, with the height and power that the two guys possess out there. Kennedy in particular is a big man but can move with the ball, and Con Kilpatrick is got that kind of mobility, but he's also a really good footballer and looks like he knows what to do with it when he gets it. So I feel like that they're much better transitioning ball up the field, and when they look, if it's on to the 3 good ball winners that they may have in there tomorrow, which McCurry, McShane, McKenna, then it's you know, you look to get it into them, and if they create the space that Cork created early on against Kerry, you know, that's where people might be nervous in Kerry tomorrow, if that kind of ball is going into those guys.
McKenna as a forward is, you know, maybe to be expected. Is there a possibility that there's something different that they do with him and they decide that he's going to be a marker in midfield or something else?
Yeah, Tyrone have always been, you know, really brave in what they do coming into big games. And, you know, go back to 2008, Stephen O'Neill hadn't played all year. You know, we're down in training Tuesday night before the game. We started hearing, Stephen O'Neill's back in training. Like, he couldn't be in training. Sure, how can a guy come back into the team that hasn't played all year? Like, he played no league game. He hasn't even been training. He doesn't know anything. And then Stephen O'Neill's out there kicking 3 points and looking really sharp, and, you know, just doing the role for the team that Tyrone want to do. So absolutely they could do loads with McKenna. He's an absolute baller. Showed that in Australia. They loved him out there. His teammates, you know, the media probably went to town and may have pushed him home, but as a player out there, he was a real success story from an Irish point of view. And could he play in the middle of the field and be a runner? Absolutely. Could he go out to a Dara Canavan and take a bit of heat off him with his size and creativity and leave a McShane and McCurry inside? Absolutely. So could he be the target man and they put ball into him and they've got McShane and McCurry feeding off him? Absolutely. So there's loads that he can do, and a top quality player. And from what I've seen of him, you know, even in his Aussie Rules days, he's a big game player too. So you know, coming into this, he'll be really looking in what has been only an okay season for him.
Yeah, you
know, he'll be looking to explode tomorrow. That's what all Ireland semi-finals are for.
Well, look, the Footballer of the Year award is right there for anybody who puts in 2 big games here for either of these 2 teams. Will Kerry regret not playing the Munster final in Croker? Was it? I mean, obviously they needed to beat Cork this year, and I can see why they were nervous about that after what had happened last year, but Tyrone have a slight advantage, again, assuming health, in the fact that they've already played here this year and they've seen what it's going to be like. I mean, does it matter?
You know, I was speaking to you before we came on, and you know, there's a huge disparity in the scores into the Devon and into the Hill so far this year in the championship, and Croke Park certainly does. You know, I'm just speaking as me. I would never have been a sharpshooter by any means, and wouldn't have been a guy that would have looked to take on loads of shots, but certainly warming up in Croke Park and both ends, you know, it does just take. I used to always try and get 10 or 15 kicks in there in between all the drills, just. You know, there's a certain wind that goes into the Devon that can help kicks and likewise hinder them, and same into the Hill. So it does definitely take a bit of getting used to. But, you know, at the same time, we talked about this in the production meeting with Sky, and Jim McGuinness laughed me out the door because he was saying, Kerry, stop. Kerry haven't played in Croke Park in 2 years. Poor Kerry. So he was having a good dig off me there. But, you know, look, it's 2019 since they played there. You know, Kerry players love to get to Croke Park and experience it and play there. But yeah, look, should they have taken the semi or the Munster final? I'm not sure, Ger. You know, the crowds, I don't know, would they have travelled from Kerry and Cork to Dublin like a Mayo and a Galway would go cross country for it. So and I would say that after what happened last year in particular, that was below in Páirc Uí Chaoimh getting beaten, I'd say, look, they said, let's get to Kerry and let's win the Munster final and let's make sure we're in an All-Ireland semi-final. So you have to kind of take the all them thoughts out of your mind about, let's get a game so if we're up here in the semi-final, because what'll be thrown at you straight away is, why didn't they just play it in Killarney when they had it in Killarney? So
and win the game.
Take care of business, win your game and go play your All-Ireland semi-final.
Okay, I can buy that. What about the mad speculation and the craziness outside the Kerry camp that always happens? There's been an extra week for it an extra fortnight for it to kind of foment. How do the players make sure that they don't somehow get sucked into that? The rumour mill's in overdrive at all sorts of stuff. There's, you know, all sorts of speculation about Tyrone, skullduggery, and like it, you know, what Kerry need to do is ignore all that, but it's not easy.
No, it's not easy. There'll be a certain level of frustration there because these guys were priming themselves 2 weeks ago for this game, and you know, outside of their control, you know, I don't know how so many cases infiltrated the Tyrone camp, but I know in Kerry it was, you know, really strict, and you know, after games they were, you know, really minded and taken to, you know, quietened areas of bars and have to stay there and nobody coming in or out or whatever. So, but you know, they have been just on kind of this delay, and you know, I know for myself playing with Kerry, we played Monaghan after a 6-week delay one time, and Monaghan should have beaten us. There was a 7-week delay from a Munster final to an All-Ireland quarter final 1 year, however it happened, and we very nearly got caught as well. So you never really want that time away when you're on a run that they were on every 2 weeks is very regular, and that's what they were hoping for. 3 weeks time we'd be out again, so the extra 2 weeks isn't ideal inside of prep, but I would say that was very quickly parked by the Kerry management, and I would have said they would have known the minute Tyrone said, well, we can't play next week. I would say that the Kerry camp would have been fairly sure that this thing is going to go on to the following week. Yeah. So they would have been able to jig around how intense they were going at their sessions, what mileage the players had to clock on that week, you know, how many speed meters, all that kind of stuff would have been calculated and refreshed, and the days maybe changed in training to get here right. So I would see Kerry and the work that Jason McGann and how experienced his management team are now, I would say that they'll hit the ground running tomorrow. But there's hitting the ground running, and then there's experiencing the intensity that's going to come at them tomorrow.
The point about the 2019 game is really interesting, and I think it's fair to say that we would all expect Tyrone to have made progress, certainly from an attacking perspective in that point. But it's fair too to expect that Kerry are a better team now, that the management team is more experienced. They've been through the experience of the All-Ireland final, the replay that year, the shock of last year. Mm-hmm. Clifford's come into the side, but also it looks like Sean O'Shea is maturing as a man. He's filling into himself, and just his game smarts is beginning to take over too. And I think Gainey's fit this year, mm-hmm. which is kind of under the radar in a lot of the analysis I'm seeing. So there are many positives for Kerry from where they were in that game in 2019, coming through the experience of the Ireland final. Granted, they lost the replay, but I think they're a better team too.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think there's definitely maturity in a few of our key guys, and them under, you know, minors that had won that were kind of quite young in 2019, you know, have another 2 years under their belt. They're 23, 24 now, they're coming into their prime. So I would agree with that comment that they're stronger. And, you know, I think Kerry have a huge amount of game changers on the bench with Killian Spillane, Tommy Walsh in particular, and even Micheál Burns coming on. Darren Moynihan is back in the fold now possibly as well. So they are guys that can come in and change a game, and three of those in particular came on against Tyrone in 19 and made a big difference. Bilan Walsh and Darren Moynihan came on the half forward line with about 12 minutes to go and just was very solid and tracked back and got on ball and linked the play lovely. So they'll be happy enough with where they are with their squad, and during stages this year have been scintillating. But they will know, and Tyrone will know that what they have faced, with all credit to those teams and their journeys wherever they are, won't be of a standard that they're going to play on Saturday at 3:30. So that's when you really want to see what this Kerry team are made of, and that's where they'll come with the answers on Saturday.
I think that's the best part about this, is that we don't know, isn't it?
Yeah, there's a lot of unknowns. It's just we haven't seen Kerry up here in so long. The COVID situation in Tyrone, who it has affected. Has it been starters? Has it been sub? Has it been impact players? How many of the starters, where they are now versus where they should be in fitness terms? There's a whole lot of unknowns. But what I know from my side of playing Tyrone over the years is they're an unbelievably proud GA county. They're going to come lock, stock and two smoking barrels to take down Kerry like they always have. They, even the year in Killarney when, we had lost a few players, they had lost a few players, they came to Killarney and that game was tight a long way through. And they really put us up to it for a long period of that game. We won out comfortable enough winners in the end, but it was a real tight ding dong battle. You go back to the league in 2019 in Tyrone, or 2020, early 2020 was a really tough battle that Tyrone won. So they'll know what they need to do to turn over this Kerry team, and they'll know who they have to keep quiet, and they'll come ready to go. That's one thing I can say. Whether they've the legs or whether that's, if it shows up tomorrow that Kerry pull away late on, well, it'll be very easy to say, look, the COVID just killed the camp, but Tyrone are going to be there for a while. They're a good young team.
That's the thing, isn't it? And that's the most exciting part about what happened with the Dubs, is that suddenly we have 4 teams who are in the All-Ireland semi-final this year who you think are going to fight it out over the next couple of years, assuming Dublin get back to the level that we know they're capable of. And this could be the birth of a rivalry, because what they've got by getting star player back from Australia and McShane back from injury and Matty Donnelly back from injury is like they have strength and depth this year that isn't going to go away. So I don't know, it feels to me like we're on the verge of a really brilliant period of Gaelic football. Armagh are good, Galway are good, Monaghan are good. We have a lot of good teams that actually could be competitive over the next couple of years.
Yeah, absolutely. And it is, Division 1 will be fun next year, because there's no doubt about it, as unbelievable as Dublin have been over the last decade. It's like the great Kilkenny team. It's like people were saying, split Dublin in two, and I was never a fan of it, because they had generational type players in so many positions, and then when their team was starting to maybe lose one or two, they shuffled in Kilkenny and Con Callahan and Brian Fenton and Howard and Jack McCaffrey, and these fellas slipped into that great 2011 team that was knocking on the door for so many years before that. So they've had a tremendous run, and they're going nowhere. I'm sure if I was a Dublin player that wanted to win more All-Irelands, you'd be knocking on Paul Mannion's door, you'd be talking to Jack McCaffrey. COVID will have settled down, the crowds will be back. They'll want to go and say that, look, last year, we didn't perform like we wanted to, even though they'll scratch their head at times how they lost that game against Mayo. But I would say they'll be coming again, to really kind of set on a marker. And then, as you say, everybody else is in the mix. So it's a really exciting time for GA, and there's been some unbelievable football this year. Gerard, it's been a joy to see some of it. Attacking
play has taken over from the ultra defensive structure as well. That's kind of the natural cycle. That, like, everybody's changed the rules. At half time, people were talking about getting a shot clock in the Dublin Mayo game, because Dublin had controlled the game and it wasn't particularly great to watch. But that's the game. The game's actually perfect. We should leave it alone, apart from maybe some bits of cynical fouling and black card being a bit more clearly defined.
Yeah, 100%, Jeff. I think if you can tidy up that side of it, the inconsistencies with the black card, and trying to really hold it for when it's a real cynical foul versus when it's something that happens 15 minutes into the game when it's 3 points all. how cynical is it then? I don't know, but I think that certainly that late on in game stuff, you know, there was instances in the Dublin Mayo game that were probably missed, but it's a great game. It's a great product what we have now. You know, I think GAA people are really loving what they're seeing from the footballers, and you know, in all divisions there's been fantastic games this year, and you know, getting crowds back is a lift, and you know, there's a bit of a momentum turn, and you know, coming into whatever format's going to be there next year, that there's going to be lots of good games and lots of good football and showing some great footballers.
Yeah, we're on the verge. If they get the format thing right, I actually think this sport is going to explode in popularity over the next couple of years, at all sorts of different levels. You know, if you can start playing fantasy, a load of different things are going to happen. If Tyrone are fully fit and everything is fine, right, which is a massive if, and we don't know, give me your prediction for what's going to happen. And
I think Tyrone are going to come hot and heavy early. They're going to be really solid defensively. They're going to look to counter and get ball in early to their attackers, and I think they will hunt for goals early against Kerry, because if they get one or two of them, they have a lot to hold on to, and Kerry have a lot to try and get back.
They started really well against the Dubs was it the All-Ireland final?
Yeah,
5-1 up?
In 18, 2018, they came out. They were 5 points to 1 up and looked really good, and they dropped one into the goalie's hand to put them 6-1 up, and Dublin came up and got the goal on the back of it. So they've been around this team for quite a while, and you know, they're in the semi-final in 17, final in 18. Very unlucky in 19 not to get past Kerry that day. So they've been right there, and as you said, the additions of young Dara Canavan, who's really top quality player.
You think he's going to start, do you?
I would think so if he's right, because I know he was kind of struggling with an ankle injury, but the fact that they've got the extra few weeks now will have him right as rain, because I don't think he was. You know, I don't think going into the Monaghan game he might have been fancy, but I know they lost 3 or 4 with COVID, so he might have been kind of parachuted in, and then he was on. So I think, you know, like from what I've seen of him, you know, I think him sitting on the 40 pulling the strings is a good look for Tyrone. And yeah, I think it's going to be really tight, and possibly maybe where Kerry might have the advantage is just what they're bringing off the bench. And I think it's going to be a tight game for a lot of the time, and hopefully Kerry's bench to come on and see us over the line and try and get us into this All-Ireland final against Mayo. If
you are the Tyrone management team, are you telling Niall Morgan to just cool the jets? Like, well, let's wait and see how the space is actually working out before you go off on a little wander?
No.
Maybe in the second half? No, straight off?
Yeah.
Go for it?
Yeah, I think you have to. I think you have to take the game, and I think you have to cause as much anarchy to the opposition as possible. And when Niall Morgan, who's an outfield player at times at his club, comes out the field in the ball, somebody has to go to him. It creates an overlap. Tyrone have excellent guys carrying the ball. They're playing Niall Sludden, who's a fantastic half forward at right half back, and he's knife and through kicking points. And yeah, you know, I would certainly tell Niall to go gun ho, because Tyrone are going to have to, and they've done that in the past. And as I said, I referenced the Stephen O'Neill. They've done stuff in the past to throw opposition off of kilter, and I think certainly Niall Morgan and the way that keeper position is evolving now is a huge asset to a team that want to have an extra player out the field, an extra swingman if the ball needs to be rotated. And I see him playing a very similar role.
It's the future, isn't it?
Yeah, it certainly is. It's an extra player, you know, it's an extra when teams you see what they're able to do now with the man-to-man kind of stuff, how good they are able to press, how good people are in tackle, where people tackle, where they don't tackle. And I think having a guy that you can give the ball to, that's comfortable on the ball, and that is a quality kick passer on the outside of his boot, and he can carry the ball, and he can just bring it into areas, and it can create space and move wide. And somebody eventually is going to go to him, and that just creates that possible overlap, and then you're into your decision making and your hand passing game then.
All right, the appetite is suitably wet. It's on Sky Sports tomorrow. Enjoy, Kieran. Thanks a million.
No hassle, sure. Thanks.